Okay, my loves. I know there are a lot of you that are out there that are really wondering, how do I even set boundaries anymore? Maybe you didn't grow up with great boundaries. Maybe boundaries weren't really modeled well for you, or maybe you were told that you cannot have boundaries. Maybe you're tired of being gaslighted in your relationships, and you're tired of feeling crazy all the time and guilty for trying to make a difference in your life. If this is you, then I want you to come schedule a call with me. Let's chat about the Unashamed Image program. The Unashamed Image program is geared towards you specifically. I am going to be helping you in our next upcoming session of the Unashamed Image. I am personally going to train you how to not feel crazy when someone is gaslighting you, how to be able to stand your ground, to keep your boundaries intact, and to also see through the bull crap. I am also going to be teaching you how to set really confident boundaries that you can really rely on. And I'm going to help you communicate them in a way that really makes sense. Basically, I'm going to help you live a life free of shame and on your terms. If you are ready and you are done feeling all the shame and guilt for trying to set boundaries, if you are not willing to live another moment the way you are right now and in somebody else's shadow, then this is the time to schedule that call with me. It's completely free, no pressure, just love, just support. Go to www.erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. Scroll down the page to where it says, Let's Chat About Working Together. Click on that button and it'll take you to my booking page. If you're ready to live the unashamed life, schedule that call. Let's get you in the Unashamed Image program, my loves. From my heart to your heart. Bye. Happy 2022, everyone. Definitely has been an interesting last month, and if you hadn't noticed, I haven't really done much with the podcast, just got a little crazy there for Christmas. But I want to change that, and I want to make sure that this year brings a lot of new things, a lot of new content, and that we can get some good discussion in. And that we can be really consistent with this, because I feel like this is a great way to help women start their healing journeys. Because I can't reach all of you personally, which I would love to. I would absolutely love to, but it's just not possible. And I really have a passion in helping women overcome betrayal trauma and healing and becoming the goddesses that they truly are. And so because of that, that's why we're doing this podcast. And you know, if you want to recap and go back through and see what I had talked about previously, we've got, let's see, how many episodes here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 episodes. Previous episodes from this one. That can give you some really good insight and talk about my journey and some of my thoughts and kind of go on from there. Also, the last episode I did right at the very, very beginning of December, I was talking about setting boundaries that don't get broken. And I was actually going to add another part to that, but I got too busy. I'm really, really sorry. I need to be better at that. But I'm going to shift gears instead. I feel like each month needs to have a theme, and that we need to discuss topics around that theme. And where it's the new year, and January is all about new resolutions, new, really pretty much just new everything. I think that we're going to kind of just work around that because that is something that I hear a lot of women talk about in my group. To me personally, it's starting anew. They're tired of their relationships with their husbands. They feel like their life is spiraling out of control, and they just can't get a grip upon what they want to do with their life and where they want to go. And so women are just struggling. And that shouldn't have to be the case. So it's time to really pull back and start paying attention to where you are in your life. One of the things that really stood out to me when I finally decided that I needed a change, that if I stayed in my marriage the way it was doomed. Excuse me, guys. If I left the marriage, we were doomed. I had kids at that time, and I knew that either way, if I stayed in the marriage the way it was going to break him. If I left the marriage, so it was going to break him, it would break me, and it'd break my husband. It wasn't a good option. And I'm not saying that that's the case for everyone, by the way. Okay? Luckily, my husband, even though he has struggled with addiction, he has never been cruel. He's never been intentionally abusive, and he's always been willing to try and change, which is something I actually really still appreciate about him. And so because of that, we always had a chance. There was always a chance because he was willing to do the work. He was willing to be humble, but we just didn't know what to do, was the problem. And some women have husbands that aren't necessarily physically abusive, but they place all the blame on their wife for everything. Well, I wouldn't do this if you wouldn't, blah, 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 blah. And so they become kind of manipulative and controlling that way. They are constantly looking at other women, constantly, like just kind of constantly being a jerk to her and making her feel like she is less than what she truly is. And then there's the really severe ones where, abuse is definitely a factor in that marriage. And so I think that you have to really know your situation well. I'm sorry, guys, I've got the yawns today, but you really have to know your situation well in order to make the decision about whether you need to stay in or leave. And in order to know your situation well, you cannot continually dwell upon what's the pain right now. Honestly, you have to pull back. The thing is if you're in a nosedive, you have to pull up. You have to pull back. Otherwise, you're going to crash. And that was a really big aha moment for me. I was in a nosedive with my relationship with my husband, my relationships in general, I should say. I mean, it wasn't just my husband, it was a lot of relationships, and I was about ready to crash. I just couldn't handle it anymore. I was constantly depressed, never checking in with family. I just ignored life in general. And, there was definitely some sufferings that happened from that, and it's unfortunate.
It was really unfortunate that my family had to go through that. But I was expecting my husband to constantly pull up on his airplane before I would pull up on mine, and I realized that that was dumb because it was just like we were in a race to see who could crash their plane first. That made no sense. Absolutely no sense. But in order for me to really know what I needed to do, I needed to really, really understand where I was at. You think I would know that because I was constantly, I wish he would change. God, hit him with a lightning bolt. I was throwing things at his head, screaming, yelling, constantly depressed. But you know what? The pain was so great that I actually could not really take a full accounting of where I was at. It wasn't possible. So I had to step back. So what does step back look like? For me, it was a realization that I was focusing so hard on things that were not bringing me joy. And because I was focusing on those things, that's all I could see. I thought that that was my life. I thought that that was my reality, but it wasn't. It was so skewed. And because of that, I couldn't see the beauty that was there either. I couldn't really actually see my kids. I couldn't, and who they were, and spend time with them the way I wanted to. I couldn't see myself and who I truly was. I couldn't see my husband for who he truly was. So I was wrapped up in this lie, and I was living this lie, and it felt terrible. So starting new meant that I had to change my focus completely off of what my husband was doing, and that was terrifying. That was actually really terrifying because I was worried that if I didn't focus on it, it would get worse. That I was the only thing that, like, my tight hold and grip on it was the only thing that was keeping it from spiraling completely out of control. And, again, it was another lie. My tight hold on it meant that I was going down with it. And that's why I felt the way I did. But I couldn't see that constantly holding on to it and focusing on it and shaping my entire life around it. I couldn't do that. I had to give something up. I had to let go somewhere. And if I was going to find healing, then the thing I had to let go of was the thing that was causing the pain. That didn't mean I had to let go of my husband, but I had to let go of his addiction completely. When we're starting something new, we have to do some sacrifice somewhere, guys. And refocus. Retrain. Another really good example for that is this year I have determined that I am going to get healthier. I feel you've got your four main energies: spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And I feel great spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. physically, we need some work. I gotta get some work done there. But I am realizing in order to get the result that I want, I'm realizing that I have to reframe my mind around some things that I previously thought. I'm having to change some of the things I do and give up some of the things that I really thought I wanted. I have to give up a lot of the treats that I really like. I have to eat more of the things that I didn't think that I liked. And I'm literally starving my body in a lot of ways because I didn't realize what I was actually needing, what my body was actually saying. So anytime we are ready to heal something, healing requires sacrifice. It always does. There's no way that it won't. After you've had a baby, you have to be off your feet for a while you heal, sacrificing honestly some of your freedom to get up and move around and do the things you want to do. I've had 2 ankle surgeries. I had to sacrifice my freedom. People had to wait on me, hand and literally foot. Anyway, but anytime you're healing anything, it requires a sacrifice of some kind at some point. Mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, those are your 4 main energies. And anytime you need to heal something in those energies, and if you're dealing with trauma, you need to heal all 4 of them. And when you're doing that, that requires some kind of sacrifice. And what if it's you need to sacrifice the very thing and let go of the very thing that you think you have to hold on to keep some element of control over your life? That was a really big aha moment for me. See, one of my favorite quotes is actually by Ezra Taft Benson. He was he was the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm not even sure of the years, in the 80s, early 90s, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he gave a fabulous quote. I'm going to find it here for you. Men and women who give their lives to God. Okay. All right. Men and women who turn their lives over to God will find out that He can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. He will deepen their joys, expand their visions, quicken their minds, strengthen their muscles, lift their spirits, multiply their blessings, increase their opportunities, comfort their souls, raise up friends, and pour out peace. I'm going to read that one more time. Men and women who turn their lives over to God will find out that He can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. He will deepen their joys, expand their vision, quicken their minds, strengthen their muscles, lift their spirits, multiply their blessings, increase their opportunities, comfort their souls, raise up friends, and pour out peace. Guys, this has become probably not one of my favorite quotes, but my most favorite quote. It was the quote that gave me healing. We actually had it on our wall when my husband and I were first married, and I kept looking at it. And about 8 years into our marriage, I had found it one more time, pulled it out and read it, and realized that was the sacrifice I had to give. See, if I were to sacrifice myself the way I was right then and give my life over to God, that meant that I would have to give my husband's life over to God, and that's not possible. I have no physical control over his decisions. I can't make him do anything. I sure as heck can try giving up control over my own life in the process, and then allowing him and his addiction and everything else that he did to control everything I do, because I'm too busy trying to control him. You cannot take control over your own life if you're too busy trying to control someone else's. It's not possible. And that's why you spin out of control, is because you're so busy trying to control someone else's life, and you only have the ability to control one life. It's a lot easier to control your own because you can actually make yourself do things, whereas you cannot make your husband or your kids or your neighbors, your parents, anybody do something else. And you literally lose control over yourself when you're too busy focused on controlling someone else. So, if I was going to give my life over to God and start a new life, then that meant I had to let go of my husband's addiction. I really honestly didn't want her along for the ride anyway. It was the chain around my ankle that was literally keeping me from freedom.
So how do you feel about boundaries? It's a legitimate question. A lot of people come to me really struggling with this concept. They often feel guilty for setting boundaries, or they're not sure about even what a boundary is. They've heard the term, set the boundary, things like that, but that's really confusing for them because it's not something that's well taught in our society nowadays, right? They know that boundaries are really important to having healthy, constructive, supportive, and wonderful relationships, but why? And oftentimes they also know that they feel like their boundaries are being violated, but they can't quite pinpoint what the boundary is that's being violated. That's why I've created the Clarifying and Creating Your Boundaries free PDF. You can find out what your boundaries are, how to tune in to what the boundary needs to be, and how to effectively create and communicate your boundary so that way you stay in this place that respects you, respects the other person, but also gives you the confidence in your boundaries so that way you stop being gaslighted, disrespected, and unseen. Having your boundaries really clear gives you a voice and also helps the other person stay in accountability with themselves. So that's not a role that you have to take on anymore. So if you are ready to really have clear boundaries, to really understand what your role is in the boundary, and to give yourself some safety and some protection against people that might try to gaslight you or are just being disrespectful, go grab my Creating and Clarifying Your Boundary PDF at erinandersonthetraumacoach.com. And while you're there, let's schedule a call with me. Come have a chat with me so that way I can really, really help you master this particular skill, creating boundaries, clarifying the boundary, communicating that boundary, and so that way I can also help you have relationships that show up to support you, cherish you, and love you.
And the only way, I had the key the whole time, but I was so afraid that if I released myself from it, that my marriage would end. That I would get an "I told you so" when that marriage ended. I was so afraid that my husband would spiral out of control and cause me even more pain. But the thing is, you can't take it along with you if you're going to focus on God. You can't. You have to release yourself from it. And you can't heal if it's constantly attached to you. And you cannot heal if you cannot let go of the fear. You cannot heal if the glass is still in the wound. You have to pull the glass out. You're going to bleed. It's going to hurt. But eventually healing comes. You can't heal if you can't move forward. But if you're going to hold your relationships together, if you're going to stay married or get a relationship that will actually support you the way you deserve to be supported, then you can't hold on to the past. You can't hold on to somebody else's choices or somebody else's consequences. Because the thing is the more I held on to my husband's addiction, the more I actually made myself responsible for his choices. And the more I made myself responsible for his choices, I was also responsible for his consequences. And they hit me square on. If I would let go, I handed him his phone and said, "Do what you're going to do. I'm done trying to control it. It's time for me to heal. It's time for me to be responsible for myself." I still put passwords on the computers and things like that, but I wasn't going to try to nanny him anymore. I wasn't going to try to babysit him. It was too much. If I wanted something new, that was the thing I had to give up. And I wanted it bad. I was tired of the pain. And the crazy thing was, and this is why I'm saying I couldn't actually see reality, it was because once I let it go and stopped allowing it to pull me down and keep me in the same spot, not able to progress, the more I did that, the more pain it caused for me. Every single time my husband slipped up, it caused more and more pain, and that wound just became deeper and deeper and more infected. When I finally did give it up, I could see that the hell I was actually fearful of was the hell I was living then. Holding on to my husband's addiction meant that I was desperately trying to hold on to lies. I was desperately trying to grab every crumb off of the floor, even though there was a banquet for me spread upon the table. Men and women who turn their lives over to God will find that He can make a lot more out of their lives than they can. Turning my life over to God meant that I was focused on Him 100%. I was in. All in with God. Not my husband's addiction. That was not what was going to roll my life. Not the abuse I found from family. Not the abuse that I had from friends and neighbors. It wasn't going to happen. I was going to heal. And to do that, I had to trust that God in Christ could heal me. And if I was going to trust that, then it meant I had to trust them and let the tight grip I had on what I thought was a little bit of safety and control go. Because the grip that I had was the thing that was keeping me grounded. So, when I let go, I found He did deepen my joys. I started looking around me and finding out that I loved my kids. I loved being around them before. I just holed myself up in a room, and if they got fed, great. It wasn't good. It wasn't good. Expanded my vision. I'm coaching. Guys, I wouldn't have seen that for myself. Trust me, I would not. But I love it. And I get to work from home. I teach children now as well. Like, I am so happy. And my joy just gets deeper and deeper and deeper every year. Quicken my mind. Yeah. Because I focused on God, I learned to recognize His voice and His promptings. And now I act. And the more I act upon what He tells me to do, the faster I hear Him. He's definitely quickened my mind. Strengthen my muscles. We're working on that one, guys. Still. Lift their spirits. Multiply their blessings. Increase their opportunities. Wow, yeah. Comfort their souls. Raise up friends. Yes. And one of those friends happened to be my husband. Me letting go and letting him take full responsibility to God for whatever choices he made was the best thing I ever did, and best thing for him and my kids too. And pour out peace. The very thing I was desperate for, peace. Because peace equals safety and security. That one thing is what I gained when I let go of my husband's addiction. So, if you're ready to start anew, I'm going to challenge you guys. Time to let it go. Doesn't mean that you're not going to that he's not going to be held accountable. Not at all. It just means it's time to let it go. And not worry about his accountability. Leave that up to God and trust that God can handle it. Okay. Next week we're talking about justice and safety, actually, and how those new things, those things we've been wanting, play in when we give our lives up to God. All right, guys. Love ya. I'll see you soon. Bye. Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out with me today and listening in on this podcasting episode. Don't forget to tune in next week. It's gonna